up, everyone? Jason Gilbo here at JGilbo11, taking a look at tonight's 6-game NBA slate. And overall, not particularly a thrilling one. We don't have any games over 210 at the moment. One game over 210, Cleveland, San Antonio, just sitting at 211. Outside of that, though, sticking in the low 200s, kind of some ugly matchups, a lot of injury concerns tonight. So it's not really a fun one to be dealing with, but as we sit here in late March, it's about what you expect at this point. So going into the first game here, Orlando and Toronto. As far as injury news in this one, we were pretty cleaned up. On the Orlando side, we're still looking at guys like Evan Fournier, Elfrid Payton in the backcourt. So it's been those names that have been kind of continuously rolling as far as minutes go. Payton, fine GPP option as always with his triple-double upside. Terrence Ross, you get a little bit of a revenge game. I'm not capable if he has the stuff to even pull off a solid revenge game, but you can toss him in a GPP if you want to play the narrative there. As far as the front court goes, Aaron Gordon in a tough matchup with Ibaka. Vucevic, high usage guy. I do like other centers. I do think he's a decent pivot tonight because I do think Drummond and Gobert are going to come in a little bit higher owned. But that's about it. As far as secondary players on this Orlando team, I'm not really looking at Fournier tonight. I mentioned him, but he was just more of a minutes guy. Guys off the bench I'm not particularly thrilled with as well. With just a 100-team total, I'm not really on Orlando a whole ton tonight. I do like Toronto. DeRozan is a high upside guy that you can use tonight. Pretty good floor in this type of matchup. Only 8,600 on DraftKings. I certainly don't mind building around him there. FanDuel 9,200. Unfortunately, once again, we have to roster 2 shooting guards on FanDuel, which is just abysmal tonight. I don't like most of these guys at all. DeRozan does give you some safety. Corey Joseph, 4,800 on DraftKings, 4,800 on FanDuel as well. Not a high upside guy, but this guy's probably going to get you around 20, 25 fantasy points. You're probably not particularly thrilled with it, but if you are paying up for a couple of studs, Joseph's probably your logical option. Serge Ibaka, I don't mind. Orlando's bottom 10 in rebounding. They're also bottom 10 against power forwards. Ibaka, haven't really seen tremendous upside out of him since coming to Toronto, but in a decent spot. 5,700 on FanDuel is not a bad price for him, so I don't mind going his way tonight. Other options, guys like PJ Tucker, if he's trying to start, more of a punt play than anything. Valanciunas is a guy that I'm off of right now, and that's pretty much it. Detroit and New York, and Detroit's got a good matchup here on paper for most of these spots, but it's really tough to trust Detroit at this point. If Ish Smith draws another start, I'm obviously looking at him as a value play. Much prefer him over Corey Joseph. There's much more of an upside there. And as far as the other names, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, great spot here, but this guy's floor is ridiculously low. Not shooting the ball particularly well. Certainly a spot where you can break out of it. So I wouldn't put it past him. A fine tournament option. And as far as other names go, Tobias Harris, once again, in a good spot, but similar thing. We haven't really seen a great floor out of him. Was playing well and then kind of dropped a couple duds in there. It makes me feel a little bit uneasy about him. Basically the entire starting 5 is in a good spot, yet carries a lower floor than I'd like. So I don't mind taking GPP shots with the Pistons. Ish Smith, if he draws to the start, is a cash game guy for me. The rest I'm just reserving for tournaments, and really at this time of the year I'm reserving tournaments because that's all I'm playing at this point. So on the Knicks side of things, it all kind of depends on how it goes. We've obviously seen Carmelo Anthony sit out the last 2 games. If that's the case, Kuzminskas is a great fill-in option. He's played over 30 minutes in 2 games, the last 2 averaging 26 DK points. I don't mind that from that price tag. Definitely don't mind him over on FanDuel as well, where he's only 3,700. So you can definitely look his way tonight if Melo's out. As far as other options go, not really looking at Derrick Rose a whole ton. Porzingis remains kind of the safer Knicks starter from the trio, just because, one, playing well, and has actually played really well against Detroit this season, averaging about 23 and 6 in 3 games. So I definitely don't mind Porzingis in this one, high usage if those guys sit. If Melo plays, he's off my radar for the rest of the year anyway. Talk about him being limited for minutes anyway with the knee issue. I don't see them really pushing it at this point. And guys like Courtney Lee don't really intrigue me. Hernan Gomez, good GPP play tonight if he can stay out of foul trouble. Drummond is not a good defender. Big guy down front. Detroit's a good rebounding team, but Hernan Gomez is a guy who I think actually matches up fairly well with Drummond. So wouldn't be surprised to see him get a little bit more usage down low in a decent spot. So definitely a good GPP guy, his price with that upside. Cleveland San Antonio, this one's, one that features basically 3 stars tonight. Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard. You can toss in Marcus Aldridge with how well he's been playing of late. On the Cleveland side, I mean, Kyle Korver out tonight. J.R. Smith going to probably draw a start here. Cheap guy. San Antonio hasn't been great against shooting guards. Am I in love with the play? Probably not. Just more of a punt play if you're looking to pay up for Westbrook, who we'll get to in a minute. As far as other options go, I mean, James put up a decent game against Leonard, but Leonard is one of the better defenders in the league. Usually don't like taking guys against him. LeBron a little bit more expensive. I definitely prefer Kawhi over LeBron here tonight. One, Leonard's always really played well against LeBron. Cavs have actually not been a solid defensive team this year. I mean, especially in the fantasy points department allowed. I mean, we've seen small forwards have big games against Cleveland this season, and Leonard's one of them. So I like him. Aldridge playing well. Not particularly in love with the matchup tonight, but I don't mind looking just because he does bring a little bit better floor here, and the usage has picked up of late. Guys outside of LeBron on the Cavs, Kyrie Irving's probably the only one that I'm looking at, and I'm probably only looking at him actually on DraftKings, where he's only 7,900. 91 on FanDuel is a little bit pricey for me, but I don't mind the matchup here. I like the fact that he won't be seeing Kawhi Leonard, so he's going to jack up a ton of shots as he's been doing lately. Kevin Love, still waiting for him to really bounce back. Don't know if I'm going to be actually using him towards the end of the season here anyway, just given the fact that, yes, the Cavs are battling with the Celtics and Wizards for the number 1 spot in the East, but they're also trying to stay healthy, and Love has not been healthy this year. So OKC and Dallas, next one here, 206 total. OKC, obviously we're looking at Westbrook, priced up 12.5 on DraftKings, 12.9 on FanDuel. He's averaged over 30 points against Dallas this season, but under 60 fantasy points. And so with that being said, I mean, basically at his price, I want more than 60. You just want that out of a guy who's priced over 12 and near 12 or near 13K. So, I don't think he's a guy that you have to jam into your lineups tonight, especially because it's just a lot of risky value around him. I think you can play a little bit safer. And one, Dallas slows down the pace. They have been really good at limiting fantasy points because, one, they play slow, and they're actually a decent defense. So with the 103 total there, not really looking at Westbrook. Could he drop a triple-double? Yes. Will I have some shares of him? Yes. I'm not going to make him a priority to stable my lineups together tonight. And neither am I with most of these OKC guys. Oladipo's played well. Once again, Minnesota's been pretty tough in the back court. The front court's been really unreliable. On the Dallas side of things, I mean, I like Seth Curry because I do like targeting against Russell Westbrook. Curry hasn't really been the most consistent of late after a really hot stretch. I still don't mind him. For one, just because he's still shooting guard eligible over on DraftKings or over on FanDuel and DraftKings as well. So you can play in there, and given the fact that he is playing the point. We've seen Noel jump in and play center over the last 2 games. Tougher matchup tonight against that front court. Dirk Nowitzki as well. All these guys are in a really mid-range price, and we're dealing with the guys like Harrison Barnes and Wesley Matthews and Seth Curry, who as far as the upside goes, we haven't really seen a ton of it of late. I don't mind them just because they are value fillers, but that's really about it. I'm not expecting a ton of production out there. I think tournaments you can look elsewhere. Memphis and Sacramento next one. This one I don't mind the Memphis side of things, and this all kind of hinders on Marc Gasol's status. If Gasol sits, obviously I like Zach Randolph quite a bit, sees a big usage bump. I like Conley, who will carry the offense. Definitely don't mind him. As far as other guys around him, I mean, Vince Carter's been a nice value filler at times this year. If Gasol's out, I don't mind taking a shot with JaMychal Green, just given the fact that it is Sacramento. They're still a bottom 10 rebounding team, even though they do have some big guys down there like Cauley Stein. So outside of that, I mean, I think you can look at Memphis as a pretty good cash game target tonight and build some of these games, build some of those lineups around them because they do give you a good floor. And one, it is Sacramento. Even with the 102 total, on a 6-game slate where we're not dealing with a lot of high totals anyway, you're kind of funneling into some of these names. So good spot for them. If Gasol comes back tonight, which one, I think they still are going to play a little bit safe with him heading into the playoffs here, and given the fact that they're likely going to lock up a stretch here pretty shortly, you can kind of fire away with other names. As far as the Kings go, Buddy Hield's probably the only one that I'm going to be looking at tonight. Memphis is bottom half against shooting guards in terms of fantasy points allowed. Hield's playing really well. I don't like targeting guys against Memphis, but, given the fact that he's shooting 48% from the field over the last 10, 23% usage rate in that span, getting minutes projected for over 30 tonight, I'm okay with using him at the price tag. But that's about it for me. Pelicans and Jazz, and this one's interesting because, one, we got DeMarcus Cousins questionable, Gordon Hayward questionable. Hayward did miss shoot-around today. If that's the case, you're looking at Joe Johnson, who's going to pick up a ton of minutes. You're going to see, obviously, probably Joe Ingles play a little bit more here. If Hayward's out, Hood and Hill pick up a lot of usage in the backcourt. Hood's super cheap. George Hill is cheap in a decent spot against this Pelicans defense. Still 103 total, which, is tough to kind of predict whether that indicates Hayward's going to play or not. So I am kind of just going to be keeping a close eye on that one. If Hayward sits, I think Joe Johnson's safe. I think the backcourt is safe. And, with Derek Favors out as well, we've seen Joe Johnson play the 3 and the 4. But Gobert, this guy who's been absolutely unreal. I still think 8K is far too cheap for a guy who's just been unreal over the last, really three weeks or so. So Gobert 8K on DraftKings, I like him a lot. I don't even think 8.7's out of the question here on FanDuel, just with the way he is playing. So his usage is up. He's near about 23-24% over the last 2 weeks or so. Just continuously producing. The blocks are always there. We saw the big 8-block game against Indiana, 5 against Chicago, 4 against Detroit. So usage, last game, 24%, 22%. So it is trending upwards, and I don't mind using him right now. And it's not a bad spot. I would prefer if Cousins sat Gobert a little bit more, and I obviously like Anthony Davis if Cousins sits, but we're going to have to see on that one. Other than that, this is still a good Jazz defense. Even without Hayward, this is still a slow down pace game for the Pelicans. Anthony Davis in a tournament is still fine with me if Cousins sits, just because we get that high usage, but that's about it. If they come in, I'm kind of off them together. I think the front court could be really crowded for all 3 of those guys, including Gobert. As far as secondary options on New Orleans, Drew Holiday, Solomon Hill, Tim Frazier, Etuan Moore, Jordan Crawford, all tough spots. And I think, they're all punt plays, but I don't really need to go down that route tonight. So that's going to wrap things up here. If you want to check out dailyfantasycafe.com for our great tools and content.